In the quiet outskirts of a small, isolated town in Maine, there lived a man named Victor Kane. Victor was known for his love of the cinema, often spending his nights engrossed in the latest horror films. He had a habit of drinking heavily, and his late-night escapades frequently left his family in turmoil. His wife Emily and their 2 young children would wait anxiously at home, dreading the sound of his stumbling footsteps as he returned from the town's only theater. One cold autumn night, after a particularly harrowing movie and several stiff drinks, Victor found himself alone at the old train station. The train had long since departed, and the air was thick with fog. Instead of taking the well-lit path home, Victor decided to cut through the dense woods that bordered the town. He knew it was risky, but the thought of saving time and avoiding the judgmental gazes of the townsfolk made it seem worth it. As he trudged through the dark forest, the tall, skeletal trees seemed to close in on him. The wind whispered through the branches, carrying with it a faint, mournful cry. Victor stopped in his tracks, his drunken haze momentarily cleared by a wave of cold fear. The cry grew louder and more desperate. He scanned the shadows, his heart pounding in his chest. Suddenly he saw her, a young woman, her pale figure barely visible in the fog, sitting beneath a twisted old tree. She was weeping, her face buried in her hands. Victor hesitated, but his curiosity and the lingering effects of the alcohol urged him forward. He approached the woman, asking if she was all right. Tears streaked the woman's face as she looked up. "My husband left me," she whispered, her voice trembling. "He threw me out, and I have nowhere to go. Please, take me with you. I have no one else." Her beauty and vulnerability struck Victor. He thought about Emily and the children waiting at home, but a strange, inexplicable urge compelled him to help the woman. He offered to take her back to his house, thinking he could sort things out in the morning. They began walking together, but as they moved deeper into the woods, Victor noticed something unsettling. The woman was falling behind. Her pace was slow and deliberate. He turned to check on her, and for a brief moment, her appearance seemed to distort, her limbs elongating unnaturally, her face twisting into something monstrous. Victor blinked, restoring her normalcy, but her fear had already taken root. Victor quickened his pace as his heart raced. The woman, now several steps behind, started to laugh, a low, menacing sound that echoed through the trees. Victor broke into a run, terror gripping him, as the laughter morphed into a guttural growl. He glanced back and saw her true form, a grotesque, shadowy figure with hollow eyes and a gaping mouth, sprinting after him with unnatural speed. Victor ran as fast as his legs could carry him, his breath coming in ragged gasps. The creature was gaining on him, its twisted limbs reaching out to grab him. He could see the lights of his home in the distance, but the darkness behind him seemed to stretch endlessly. Just as he reached his front door, the creature lunged, its icy claws grazing his back. He slammed the door behind him and collapsed on the floor, his body shaking with fear. As his wife rushed to his side, she recoiled in horror as she touched him. Victor's skin was cold and clammy, and his eyes glazed over with a deep, unnatural terror. They managed to get him into bed, but Victor was never the same. Every night at 3 a.m., Victor would vanish from his room, only to reappear the next morning in the town's garbage dump, smeared with filth and excrement. Something had tormented him through the night, causing his body to twist and contort. Emily was desperate for help. She called priests, exorcists, and shamans from all over the country, but none could offer a solution. Every healer who attempted to purify Victor would face a curse, with rocks hurled at their homes and strange knocks resonating through their halls at night. They would wake to find their windows shattered, symbols carved into their doors, and warnings from the other side. As the days passed, Victor's condition worsened. His once strong body grew frail, and his eyes were sunken, haunted by whatever horror had attached itself to him. His family was helpless, watching him deteriorate in front of their eyes. One night, as the family huddled together in fear, Victor let out a blood-curdling scream. The house shook violently, and the lights flickered. Rushing to his room, they discovered it empty. Victor had vanished. and the bed sheets had contorted into a body shape. He was never found. Some claim the creature that pursued him that night in the woods took him. Others believe he was claimed by the spirits haunting the land. However, the town would never forget Victor Kane's terrifying ordeal in the cursed woods that swallowed him whole. The townspeople began to avoid the forest, and stories of the creature spread far and wide. On dark, foggy nights, people claimed to hear the mournful cries of the woman in the woods, luring unsuspecting souls to their doom. Those who ventured into the darkness would face the same fate that claimed Victor, a fate sealed by the shadows of death.